Hi, and welcome to Focus on English. This is a calm English podcast for listening and real conversations.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Our job here is pretty simple. We take a whole mountain of sources, everything from really serious test prep guides to those little travel phrase books, and we try to find the core principles that actually work. And today we're doing a deep dive into mastering the absolute basics of learning English effectively. We're talking strategy and grammar.
Right.
We have a fascinating mix of material. I mean, on one hand, you have these detailed blueprints for getting B2 certified, and on the other, just simple dialogues for, say, ordering coffee.
Yeah, very different levels.
So our mission for you is to just cut through all that noise. We want to pull out the foundational stuff, the strategic map, and I guess the structural code that successful learning is built on.
That's a great way to put it. We're essentially trying to reverse engineer success by looking at what all these different approaches have in common.
Okay, so where do we start?
Well, we have to look at the strategy first, how you plan the whole thing. And then right after that, we have to get into the fundamental structure of English itself. Because without that, well, the whole building just collapses.
Right, even if you have a great vocabulary.
Especially then.
Okay, so let's start with that big picture, the strategy. The sources are, well, they're really clear that this isn't just a casual hobby. It's a project.
For sure. And like any project, you need to know where you're going.
To use that great travel analogy, if your goal is just vague, like I want to speak English, you won't know which route to take.
No idea.
But if you define it as, say, reading Shakespeare unaided versus being conversational on my next trip, that completely changes everything. The materials, the time you need, all of it.
And what's really fascinating is how structured the advice is, no matter what level you're aiming for. It really boils down to 3 steps you just can't skip. First, you have to define the goal. Make it specific, measurable, all that SMART goal stuff. But it's the second step that people always seem to miss. Determine your starting point.
Why is that one so critical, though? I mean, surely most people have a rough idea of where they are.
You'd think so, but taking an objective assessment, even a quick online test, is crucial because it stops you from wasting your own time.
Okay.
If you think you're a B1 but you're really an A2, you're going to grab advanced material and just get frustrated. You'll burn out. An assessment turns that vague hope into a real, measurable starting line.
That makes perfect sense. So we know our start point, we know our destination, which brings us to step 3, breaking it down.
Yep, the classic eating the elephant piece by piece strategy.
You take a terrifying goal like fluency and you turn it into, manageable daily tasks.
Precisely. And this is where the strategy goes a bit deeper, from just project management into psychology. The materials put a huge emphasis on motivation, on accountability.
This is where it gets really interesting for me. They suggest sharing your goal publicly, on social media with friends. They even say it should be shameful to give up. That sounds a little harsh. I see the logic using external pressure to beat procrastination, but doesn't the fear of public failure maybe demotivate some people?
That's a really good question, and the material does address that risk. The trick, they say, is how you frame the goal you're sharing.
How so?
You don't just announce, I will be fluent. Instead, you say, I'm going to study English for 30 minutes every single day this month.
Ah, I see. You make the goal about the process.
Exactly. It's about consistent action, not some far-off outcome. That way, the shame is attached to not trying, not to failing to get a perfect result immediately.
That distinction is so important. Process goals versus outcome goals. And that ties right into the next critical piece, which is consistency.
Yes. The material uses a really memorable analogy for this. Knowledge is food for the mind. You wouldn't skip eating for 2 days and then try to eat a triple portion on the 3rd day, right?
Yeah.
And body can't handle it.
Right, you feel awful.
Your brain is the same. It needs regular, small doses of new information to really process it and move it into long-term memory. Cramming might feel productive, but that knowledge just fades so quickly. Consistency is what builds real, lasting retention.
That's how you avoid getting stuck.
Exactly. So no shortcuts, just smart, consistent work. And the last piece of the strategy is just make it fun.
Don't just live in the grammar exercises.
Please don't. If you love cooking, find English cooking blogs. If you're into sci-fi, watch the films with subtitles. When you connect English to something you already enjoy, you're so much more likely to actually show up every day.
All right, so we have the map for the journey. Now, what about the territory itself, the English language? Let's get into the structural foundation. A lot of learners feel like English is weirdly rigid or strict. Why is that?
That rigidity is really the core trade-off of the language. In languages where word order is more flexible, you rely on inflections, changing of the endings of words to show who's doing what.
Yeah.
English, centuries ago, decided to get kind of lazy with its verbs. It simplified the conjugations, but the price it paid for that was demanding an absolutely fixed word order.
So the price of easier verbs is that you have to put your words in a very specific place.
Exactly. And that fixed order is what we call SVO. Subject, verb, object. Every normal affirmative English sentence has to follow that pattern.
And if you change it?
You change the meaning entirely. If I say, the dog bit the man, I can't just move those words around to emphasize the man without breaking the sentence or needing a whole different structure, like the passive voice. The order is the meaning.
This order also relies on those two mandatory parts you mentioned earlier, the subject who or what, and the predicate. Let's make sure we're clear on that.
Right. The subject is the actor. The predicate is the action part. It's the verb and everything that completes the thought about the subject.
Yeah.
In a lot of languages, you can imply the verb to be. You might just say, I teacher.
But in English, you can't.
You absolutely cannot. You have to include that verb. It's like structural glue. You have to say, I am a teacher. The moment you drop that glue, the sentence just falls apart.
And it's this fixed nature that explains why questions and negatives are so reliant on something called the auxiliary verb.
Yes. This is the key. This is the big technical thing that makes English work the way it does, the do support.
Okay, let's break that down. Why does English need this extra little helper verb, usually do, to make a question or a negative sentence? Lots of other languages just flip the main verb or add a particle.
Because, as we said, the main verb in English is structurally lazy. It can't carry the weight of negation or inversion all by itself, so the auxiliary verb, the do support, it steps in to do the heavy lifting.
It's like a structural placeholder.
That's a perfect way to describe it. It carries the tense, and it's the only place where the negative particle not is allowed to attach. We have to say, they do not work. We can't say, they work not.
And it does the same job for questions. We use inverted word order, but we only flip that auxiliary verb to the front. Do they work?
The main subject and verb, they just stay put. The auxiliary pops out front to signal, hey, this is a question. It's a really neat system, actually, and it carries over directly into social grammar.
You're talking about the brief answer rule. This is one of those small things that makes the huge difference in sounding natural and, well, polite.
It's a huge deal. Just saying yes or no in English can sound really abrupt, almost rude.
Yeah.
And that auxiliary verb we were just talking about, that's the key to politeness. If someone asks, do you want coffee? You have to use that helper verb back. Yes, I do, or no, I don't.
So if the question is she working? You answer, yes, she is.
That's it. You're basically confirming the action by using the same little structural helper that was in the question. It is such a simple rule to master, but it immediately stops you from sounding unintentionally rude.
Okay, so we have the strategy and we have the grammatical skeleton. Let's see how that rigid structure actually works in the real world. Let's look at some of those high-stakes dialogues from the source material.
Great idea. We can look at 3 common situations where these simple structures are lifesavers. Let's start with travel and transport. At the airport, all these phrases are just direct applications of that subject-predicate structure.
Right, like making a request. It's almost always that polite, structured opening. I would like, or could I have? I would like a window seat, please. Could I check in this luggage?
And right there, that's where we saw that little cultural detail. In one dialogue, the American traveler says baggage, and the British staff member replies using luggage.
That's a great little distinction.
It's a tiny thing, but it reminds you that even when the grammar is fixed, the vocabulary is always changing depending on where you are.
Love it. Okay, the second high-stakes area, dining. This is all about structured questions and polite, indirect requests.
Totally. Think about ordering. You relied on that simple SP structure. I will have the soup, or I would like the steak. Then you hear the structured questions back at you. How would you like your steak prepared?
Rare, medium, well done.
Exactly. And you have to respond in a structured way. And then, crucially, what if there's a problem? Like the bill is wrong. You can't just say, the bill is wrong.
No, that would be very rude.
It would. You need that polite, structured opener. Excuse me, but could you check the bill for me, please? It does not seem right. Notice the structure. Could you check? That's an inverted question using the auxiliary could.
The grammar is what makes it polite.
It's what stops you from sounding demanding. And the final category, emergencies. These are simple structures, but they carry enormous weight.
They do, and they're usually just simple declarative sentences or direct commands, reporting a theft. I've been robbed, my wallet was stolen. Or asking for medical help. I have pain in my left arm. Simple subject, simple verb, the object. And if we look really closely, even the most critical legal phrases rely on those same question structures we just analyzed.
Absolutely. What are my rights? That's an inversion after the whoa word. Can I call a lawyer? Simple inversion with the auxiliary can. The vocabulary isn't complex, but the grammar has to be perfect or you won't be understood when it matters most.
So the deep dive here reveals that the most essential phrases are really just the basic grammar rules applied consistently and politely.
That's it. And if we connect that to the big picture, the most practical takeaway is probably this. Stop looking for easy ways out. Stop searching for shortcuts that let you skip the grammar.
Embrace the structure.
Embrace it. The rigidity is actually a benefit because it makes the rules predictable. You can start incredibly simple with something like, tea please? That's socially fine because you added please. But at the same time, you have to commit to mastering that foundational SVO structure and keeping up that daily practice.
Okay, so what's the one actionable step for you listening right now? The sources strongly recommend getting creative with your learning, especially with vocabulary. Don't just make lists.
Please don't.
Use mnemonic devices. The more creatively you engage with a word, the better you anchor it in your memory. Link a new word to a picture, a silly phrase, or even a similar sounding word from your own language. Build memory hooks.
This is such a critical point. You have to actively connect new information to what you already know. If you learn the word flourish, picture a flower blooming. This active creative engagement combined with that consistent daily habit, that is what will accelerate your learning.
So that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the essentials of English mastery. We've covered the strategy you need for planning, emphasizing those clear process goals and consistency, and we've broken down the fundamental structural rules of English, highlighting that fixed word order and the vital role of the auxiliary verb.
And remember, most confusion comes from trying to map English perfectly onto your own language. Don't do it. Just embrace the fixed nature of its word order. It's a simple machine, but you have to respect its parts.
And finally, a provocative thought to leave you with, building on this idea of strategy and self-belief. The sources suggest that the biggest barrier to learning isn't the complexity of language, it's our own self-imposed limitations. The moment you define your goal and commit to the process, you're stepping out of that box. What you believe you can achieve, well, you must first believe you can learn.
Thank you for listening. If this podcast helps you practice English, feel free to subscribe. See you next time.